Autosport is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the SVRA. And if you haven't checked on SVRA lately, you need to look into them. Tony Pirelli, the owner, also now owns the Trans Am Series, and he owns the Formula 4 Series. They're doing a lot of things, so go to svra.com and see what they're doing. They're really growing like by leaps and bounds. We're also presented by McGilvery's in Speedway, as well as VP Insurance, located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Get a hold of Mike Pardee if it's time to renew your insurance and see what he can do for you. You'd probably be surprised, like most of us have. You get better coverage for less money. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. You give him a call, tell him what you need, he can tell you what he can do for you. Number is 317-248-0070. And if you've ever wondered, what's it like to drive an Indy car? Well, you can find out what it's like to ride in one. You go to the Indy Racing Experience and take a ride in the two-seater. You'll see what it's like, and you'll be surprised at the speeds. But you'll think you're going 250 miles an hour, and you're going 190. Go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date that'll work for you, and sign up for it. And in the promo box, put Don K, and you get a 50% discount. We're in the offices of the United States Auto Club here in Speedway, Indiana. And I have a guest today that I haven't talked to before. He is handpicked for the job as media director for the United States Auto Club by Dick Jordan, a 50-year member of the USAC and traveled the country. And he handpicked this young man to come in and take over, and he has. His name is Richie Murray. And Richie, I appreciate your time. You're a local guy. You're from the Indianapolis area and graduated from Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken. Lawrence Central, excuse me.
You said rivals.
Yeah, that's true. And you went to Ball State. Now, obviously, you studied communications or journalism or something, right?
Not particularly.
Oh.
Believe it or not, I was actually a physical education and health major. I did, when I was in high school, I did newspaper and yearbook for 4 years. And I initially wanted to go into college for that. But, I kind of had, my parents got divorced right before my senior year of high school, and then I didn't have really any money to go to college. So I did what a lot of people don't. So I didn't want to take out loans. I wanted to go to work and make some money so I didn't have to catch back up. So I went to work, and I ended up working for 4 years actually at an electronics firm in Carmel, building radios.
There you go.
So by the time I was done, I had enough money to go to college and went on with my life. But I didn't know about journalism and stuff, and at that point my mind was kind of going, I don't know what direction I want to go into, and I thought maybe I want to be an athletic director at one point. I was like, you get through teaching, and then I was actually I actually was JV assistant basketball coach at Noblesville High School for a year while doing my student teaching. So I kind of did a little bit of everything, and
here you are.
Suited me up for this job, apparently.
Well, where did Dick find you? On a basketball court, or where did Dick find you?
So I always knew of Dick Jordan. I
really?
always thought he had the dream job for me, because I'm a USAC fanatic, and I always ran stats and did everything since I was 8 years old, writing in notebooks. And then, so I was after college, after graduation, I was working as a teacher in Noblesville High School and Noblesville East Middle School as a substitute teacher and an instructional assistant. And I saw this little posting on IndianaOpenWheel.com that said, it was from the Stars Midget Series. I ran at Grundy County Speedway up in Morris, Illinois.
Yeah, I used to go there all the time.
Yeah. And they had a little write-up that said they're looking for an intern, a PR guy, to write some stories. And I was in the middle of teaching, and it said it didn't involve work during the week. It was just Saturdays, and I jumped at it and said, heck yeah, I'll do it. I've kind of heard of the Stars series, but I know pavement midget racing, and I know all the drivers, so I was excited to do that. And I thought, man, I better be the first one. I don't want to miss this opportunity. And I called them. I ended up just calling them. And I was like, do I have the job? Like, sure. I was like, okay, I guess that's a job interview. And he was like, we'll see you Saturday. Okay, that was the job interview. So I did that for like from April or May when their season opener till August. And they had a co-sanctioned show with USAC. And I went, I was so excited. I was like, ooh, this is, Dick Jordan is going to be there, I hope. And I was calling him throughout the week, asking for USAC's history at Grundy County, and so he could give me some stats. And I got to talking on the phone with him like every day while I'm sitting at my school desk during my lunch break, just calling him. And then so I made sure to. And if he's coming, he wasn't sure he was going to come at first. I'm like, man, I'm going to miss my chance. And then I heard he was coming, and our guy in the push-off shoot that night, I'd been in the booth for every week, and that night the push-off shoot person was absent. I said, Richie, can you run down there and run the push-off shoot? No, this can't be true. But I was going to miss out. But about 20 minutes later of me just standing around, not knowing what I'm doing, they sent me back up. And I just talked his ear off all night and tried to impress him. And then at the end of the night, it's the first time we ever met. And I said at the end of the night, you know, by the way, I don't live in Joliet, Illinois, actually, from Indianapolis. And my dream's always to work at USAC. And he said, wow, that's pretty impressive to hear. So that was Saturday night, and by Monday morning I had a job interview here.
Well, I know he told me that he had hired you, and I said, why, are you through? He said, I'm working on going into my 50th year, and it's time for me to kind of back away. Well, he did, and you came in and worked with him for about a year, I think, didn't you? You worked with him?
Yeah, well, 5 years.
Yeah. For 5 years, I'm sorry. And certainly learned, he taught you well. Now that you've got the job, you're here, you've been here a number of years, was it a good choice?
Oh, absolutely. I got to live my dream. I mean, it's the second best thing to actually being able to drive one of these cars. And I had that idea nixed pretty early on.
Really?
So you got to stay with stick and ball sports. It's safer. So by the time I'm this age.
And besides that, you're a little tall. Your head would stick out of a midget for sure.
You got to get the extra tall kids.
What do you find most exciting about what you do now? You cover the majority of USAC events nationwide, I assume.
Okay.
You're going on the road quite a bit. What's the most exciting part of your job that you have?
Well, like at the beginning, I mean, it still is getting to visit new places and new tracks that I've never been able to go to. As a fan and coming to this side of the thing, I've tripled my track list at least. So, but now it would probably be getting access to the history of USAC, the records that were always under lock and key for all those years, and getting to bring those out. And like we have an extensive record collection, videos and photos that are pretty much unearthed. And I've been, when I have time, that 5 hours per off season I have, I've tried to scan as many photos and digitize as many videos and update all the stats and see who's rising up the ranks and the records and all that stuff.
Do you get a lot of requests for that? I mean, do people contact you and say, do you have pictures from such and such a race at Springfield or DuQuoin or wherever it happened to be?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Do you really?
Yeah. Now, early on when it's still a work in progress. So it'll probably be a lifelong project. So, but you get those requests a lot, and
really?
Early on it was kind of hard because then you got to go find them in a box and pull it out, and then now a lot of it is scanned. You may be able to say, okay, here's George Snyder in '82 at Springfield, whatever you want.
Well, the interesting thing is, I think a lot of the information, a history of USAC was on Dick Jordan's desk. He'd walk into his office every once in a while, and I'd have to, are you there? Yeah, I'm here. He had stuff piled everywhere. And speaking of history, we're sitting in front of a car driven by Al Unser Sr., with Phil Casey as a crew chief. It's a 1969 Grand King car, and he won a number of championships with that very car, which is why we're sitting here. You know, in the time you've been here, you've seen some of these young kids start out, and all of a sudden they start going up and up and up. There's some really good drivers in USAC coming through the midgets and sprint cars and the Silver Crown. Like Cody Swanson's won 6 Silver Crown championships. I think he's beaten AJ with the number of championships. You know, it's got to be fun to watch these young kids come in and you watch as they progress and learn and get the feel for the car and understand how to race and watch them grow.
Yeah,
and then write about them.
Yeah, for sure. And getting to know how some of these kids, like from their first win, and you interview them after the race and they don't know how to say more than a couple of words other
Right.
than, I'm really excited. And then the next time you interview them, they have a lot more to say, and then third win they come out and you don't even have to ask a question. They just start talking for 3 minutes. That's what is pretty cool about that. Like just seeing their personal development along with how good they get in race cars as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I've done more with the Indy cars, the young guys that come in that qualify to get to that point, they're hard to get something out of, but after a little bit of time, it's completely different. They talk and you ask a question, you get an answer. You're not, I don't know. So what's your favorite part of what you do? Covering the races and results, or writing stories about the event and the participants and the championships and champions?
I mean, I take pride in the race recaps because I spent the most time on those, and that involves staying up a lot later than the rest of the world. I always like to say I live on Hawaiian time sometimes because I'm up so late and the rest of the world is asleep, and I'm trying to write those and craft them and make sure I don't miss a single thing and have some kind of tie-in with all these stats and everything. And I think that's the most rewarding part is having those and then being able to pull them out years later, because like I'm currently working, we did a Silver Crown, history of USAC Silver Crown racing book last year, and then now we're currently working on a history of USAC midget racing book, and I can pull all those out without those old stories out and just kind of have all the history right there in front of my eyes and repurpose it.
Do you also chase down Mel Kenyon and talk to him, because he's still around, and some of the guys that ran back in the 50s and 60s are still around and able to? Do you get a chance to talk to them and get their perspective of what it was like then?
Yeah, I've had the chance to speak with Mel and Bobby Unser and all these guys that, thank you to Dick Jordan for introducing me to a lot of people, and I was able to spend time away from the racetrack with them, just like eating dinner or something with them, things I could never imagine, and get to ask them about these old, the days of yesteryear and all that.
And of course, another good source is Dr. Pat Sullivan, because he and Dick traveled for many years together to the racetrack, and of course, Dick was up in the media booth writing the stories, and Pat was more likely on the PA announcing the race. So I would think he would be a good source as well, because he's written several books on the sport. Is there anybody else writing books that you're aware of on USAC or USAC series?
I think it's myself and Pat Sullivan, and we had John Mahoney on the last book, providing all the photos, of course, and Bob Mays. So like in the last book, I'm surrounded by 3 National Sprint Car Hall of Famers.
That's hard to take, isn't it?
And there's my name, and it's kind of hard to believe that. But but as far as writing books, luckily for me, I have access to the records.
Right.
And those have never been out before. Nobody knows the 1963 full results and has every newsletter and every tidbit, and luckily I'm able to have those, and it's easy to do the research.
You had to have learned a lot working, as you said, 5 years with Dick, because he spent a lifetime doing it, and he traveled. There probably isn't a track in the country that he hadn't been to at one time or another, and knew it well, and he was always very well respected because he treated the drivers and the team owners and the sponsors well. And I got to assume you picked up, how to interact with the drivers and so forth from him.
Oh, absolutely. And it's basic human decency. It's
of course.
basically what he had, and I try to model myself after that. And I treat everybody with respect, even if they sometimes are not wanting to on the other end, and which sometimes happens. But it happened in my earliest years at USAC when people want to argue a rule or something. I write the stories. I don't do that.
You don't make the rules. You just
go ask him.
Things are changing with USAC now. It seems to be picking up steam again. There was a couple of years when the car counts were down, midgets in particular, I think. But things seem to be picking up. The Silver Crown Series, a lot of guys have brought their cars, dusted them off, and are running again. So the series is picking up, and you've got more events now than you have in recent years.
Right. Last year we had the most events since we've had since 1977, and between the National Sprint and Silver Crown and National Midget Series, and there's the events are nationwide, and the drivers have come out in droves. Like, we had more full timers in each of the 3 series than we've ever had before. And some might think like, such and such year was the glory days. Well, the glory days are whenever you want them to be. So they could be now. And we've had a lot of full timers, a lot of guys going for the championship, and I remember particularly the midget division that you mentioned early on. I think there was 3 drivers that went for the entire championship, and one was injured, and I think car counts sometimes were below 20 within the state of Indiana. It was hit and miss, and then I think there were some changes with rules to even the playing field for engines, but I think initially that helped, and then eventually people just got the excitement of midget racing is paramount, and there's nothing like it. And I think just seeing that through what we do with our video and people getting knowledge of midget racing, got excited and wanted to be involved. And now there's promoters always saying, we would love to have a USAC midget race, and it used to be years ago to say yes. And now it's like, well, we have that weekend filled, unfortunately, and there's too many races for as many slots as we have.
Well, interestingly enough, I used to follow USAC, an open wheel series of short tracks. I used to go down and watch when Andy Granatelli ran the midgets down to Soldier Field in Chicago. And I've been to many tracks, many weekends. I went to hundreds of races a year. Well, I shouldn't say hundreds, maybe 100. And it kind of tailed off. And then in the 70s, it seemed like California was a hotbed for racing, but a lot of those drivers moved here because of USAC, and to get into the USAC because of the name and the prestige. And when you won a USAC race or a championship, you won the best and you beat the best. So our drivers, Cody Swanson is from California. He lives here now permanently. There's a lot of them that have come here. Are they still drivers coming here from the left coast to compete in USAC?
Yes, there's Justin Grant, Buddy Kofoid, champions over the last couple of years, come from California. Rico Hebrew, Kyle Larson. It's probably the hotbed of racing right now, where all the biggest names come from, and they all try to go to the Midwest because there's a lot more racing out here, and in the surrounding areas, Ohio, Pennsylvania. You can kind of run anywhere, and you have everything's within a reasonable drive. Out in California, everything's so spread apart. It's such a big state. Things are a little more expensive there, and
a little more.
I was being nice, but but basically, people love being able to run 3 times a week here at the local, even if it's not USAC. There's usually a USAC race every weekend somewhere. Right. Even if you're not running that, you could run Gas City on a Friday and Putnamville on a Saturday, Kokomo on a Sunday, and you'll run more races in a month than some guys might have run all year out on the West Coast.
Well, there was a time when they'd run 4 and 5 times a week. And it was interesting when I first got involved in it and got really into it. I would go to the race and I'd try and stay where the teams were staying, where the drivers were. And it was not unusual to go to a race and the drivers have a discussion of something they didn't like. And they'd have a 2x4 and they'd discuss it out in the parking lot. But you go to the motel and even that night or early in the morning, they're out trading parts to go race against each other that night. And it always intrigued me that you were mad at them last night, but you're helping them to go and beat them again tonight. So it was interesting how these guys reacted. And of course, at that time, the goal was to be successful in USAC particularly, because that was your stepping stone to get to Indy cars and get to the Speedway. And I don't know that it's quite like that, but there are a number of drivers, as you would know, that certainly deserve that shot, should be in the Road to Indy program and work their way up. And why they're not, I'm not really sure if it's they don't have anybody back in. I don't know. I really haven't asked because I was afraid I'd hear an answer that I didn't like. It's hard to get there. Well, yeah, it always has been. But are the crowds back to where they used to be? Are you getting good crowds attending the races now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we go to places that want us, and people want to see us there. So we kind of streamlined that we have pretty much major events everywhere we go, and some of those places, like we have a lot of traveling series weeks, like Eastern Storm. We go for 6 straight nights out in Pennsylvania, and Indiana Sprint Week, Indiana Midget Week, and then out down in Florida, there's full 2 weeks of racing, and people love the variety that you can see, and it's just kind of generates an excitement that I don't think there's very many where there's just a race it's just a race. We try to make it an event and bring what we can to the table as far as the great racing, and people get pumped to, especially in areas where you don't see them too much.
Well, I think you need to talk to Kevin Miller, the president and CEO of USAC, and have him talk to Mother Nature. She's not cooperating again, because I think there's an event that was to be this weekend in Lawrenceburg that's already been canceled. It's Friday. In case anybody wonders, this is April Fool's Day we're doing this, and you'll see it a couple days afterwards. But Mother Nature's not being real nice to start the season, which is not terribly unusual, but unfortunately, I think even back to IRP again, Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park had a schedule this past weekend and it had to be canceled because of Mother Nature, and then rescheduled in August. So it does create problems, but they always manage to find a date where we can move the race and still have it. How many events are in the Sprint Week and Midget Week this year?
There are 7 events for Indiana Sprint Week across, well, actually 8, I believe now.
Yeah, I think there is 8.
9 nights. Yeah, because we added one at Circle City Raceway. But just one night off this year. Indiana Midget Week, I believe, is back to 5. It was 6. So we have plenty of events, and they're in a busy part of the schedule. So you go from, I think we're in Oklahoma or Kansas the week before Sprint Week, and then come out and travel and get right back to work and go hard at it again for Sprint Week. So straight into BC 39.
Yes, and that's become quite an event. The BC 39, named after Brian Clausen, of course. And I see it's been rescheduled and it's back on the schedule again, so that's good. And that draws some big names to come in it, like Kyle Larson won last year in a phenomenal race. So that's an event. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. It's really quite a race. And it's a 2-day event. You qualify and practice and qualify on Thursday and race on Friday, I believe.
Yeah, we run heat races on the first night, and we have the pursuit race, which it's wild and crazy. I don't know if I can explain the rules. I don't know if there's enough time, but basically you get passed, you're eliminated, and it's 25 laps, and Larson has managed to win that the last 2 times out there. And there was that one a couple years ago where 2 cars flipped on the final lap, and he went spinning and still won. Probably the most dramatic event we've ever seen finish.
Well, it's interesting. And Circle City Speedway, I'm glad to see, I think that's the Jonathan Bird project. He put that together at Marion County Fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And how come the midgets aren't running there?
Yeah. Well, we have a midget race there.
Oh, do you do? Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head, but when we get to, we had one during Indiana Midget Week, and I believe that's back on the schedule again. And it was a pretty cool event to, especially to have one for me, and that's not too far from where I grew up. And I've been to the Marion County Fairgrounds and saw TQ midgets way back in the day.
Yeah.
When at the fair, riding the Ferris wheel and go see the TQs, and now it's a little different, and it's all built up, and they got brand new grandstands and completely different track. It's just a new track, but just happens to be on the same grounds.
Right. Do you still is USAC still involved with the what do they call it? The truck.
Yeah. Robbie Gordon Stadium Super Truck.
Well, that one and the one that runs, I can't think of. But they run on, jumped in the dirt. They run in dirt, and USAC sanctioned it. They still, and I can't think of the series. It was started by, I think it was started by Marty Reed, I believe. I think is who started some years back, truck series. But do you still do that? Still sanction that event?
To be honest, I'm not real sure. We have a lot of stuff going on in other categories. I know we have that, but Ultra 4 I know is a series that is off-road.
Yeah, it's an off-road.
Snowmobiles in there, and we're the sanctioning body of the Road to Indy series too, USF 2000, Indy Pro series as well. So we're the most diversified sanctioning body anywhere. We have more than 20 different series just in every parts imaginable, and we have like Jason Smith, who's former sprint and midget coordinator. He now operates the off-road division.
Right, that's the one.
He's traveling to Australia and
poor guy.
everywhere,
Poor guy.
in between. But I know, unfortunately, last year, a couple years ago, he had like a whole year off because of COVID. So he was hanging out with us. But.
Oh boy! And you lost another one of your heavy hitters. Has now moved over to IndyCar and has taken over the Indy Light Series. Levi has left, and he's been here, a former driver. And left here. How many people work directly full-time for USAC?
Full-time?
Yeah.
So I would say...
That's not including Kevin.
I would say there's maybe around 6 or so. I would say,
really?
Me and Kirk Spridgen, of road guys, Sammy Stearns. I know Rich Foreman does our graphic design as an official as well. But we have a lot of weekend warriors who do other jobs. And
you have to.
Yeah.
For 6 people running this 20 or so series, you got to have people coming in, flying in, driving in, walking in. It's the cheapest way to get to do it. Do you get to go to any of the off-road stuff?
No. We have around 100 races per year on the USAC National Tour, so
that keeps you busy.
It's busy enough. So the only off-roading I do is hopefully none of that if we ever veer off the side of the road. I don't want that.
Well, I have to say I get your what you're writing, your summaries of the races, and I think you have stepped into a guy who spent 50 years doing it and have stepped in, and it's been a very smooth transition. I think your writing, in my opinion, from when you first started has improved, and it's well worth reading. You cover the event, you cover what happened. If somebody did something that's kind of dumb and ended up in the fence, you read about it. If you didn't get to the event, most of the events are on Flow, aren't they? Flow TV?
Yeah, all USAC national events are on Flow.
So you can watch it. It's a subscription, but I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to get it this year. Tell me it's a good thing to watch. It's a good coverage of the races. So to me, one of the most interesting guys that drives for USAC, and you mentioned, is Rico Hebrew. You wonder how in the world does he get in a car, because he's only about this tall to begin with. But he is a character and a super driver. He's won Chili Bowl, I think twice.
He was a USAC National Midget Champion in 2014. Yeah.
And he's done a little bit of everything in amongst his family wine business. I guess he goes out and picks wines or something. But there's some really interesting people involved in the sport, and fortunately, as in IndyCar, you can get access and see the drivers and meet them and talk to them. Not when they're putting their helmet on, getting in the car, but they're available to the fans, which to me is huge, because that's how you get a fan base, is you get to say hello to them, say hello. So it works well.
Yeah, that's one of the neat things about our sport, because you can't go down to the sideline and just talk to a football player.
Right.
But you can go down and talk to a driver. In our out of USAC area, pit area, which is pretty cool. And then, obviously they're all strictly business once you get to a certain time.
Of course.
They're just staring at their car. Now when not to.
That's right.
You can't talk to it. Leave them alone.
Strangely enough, some fans don't realize that, and I keep reminding when they put the hat on, it's time to stop.
Right.
So, what are you looking most forward to, event that you're going to go to this year? What do you think is the event that, to your mind, is going to be, this is going to be it? Should be one of the best. Where would that be? Well, other than the 100 you're going to see.
It's hard to choose on that, but there's, obviously the marquee events are always cool, but I always like, I love those always, but I always like visiting the new tracks as well. Because we just announced the Western World Championships. They moved to Cocopah Speedway in Arizona. It's a track I've never been to, and USAC National Series hasn't been there since 1989. Yeah, there's I-70 back in Missouri, and tracks like that I've always seen on TV and I've never been to. So those are always the interesting ones to go to that still get to add to the list. After this amount of time, there's very few times you get to do that and to check off a few more.
Do you enjoy packing a suitcase and coming home, doing laundry and repacking it and leaving again?
Well, I don't know about that part. But it's a necessary part of it. And sometimes you have to do it on the road. Like our California trip, we're out there for a full month. So you have to find time to do laundry a couple times. And then you have only so much time to do it, and there's the rough part when you go down the one laundry room they have one washer and one dryer, and somebody has left their clothes in the washer and they're gone. And that's I ran into that problem last year. I stood there was clothes in the washer, and I just sat there for 20 minutes. I was like, is this person ever going to come back? So I started I'm just going to move their clothes to the dryer. And as soon as I started doing that, they walked back. Don't I look like a terrible person?
Well,
I was just
going to help you out.
Nothing for me.
Well, there's a good and a bad in everything, but when you enjoy what you're doing, the bad part is you just pass over it. And I've been involved in the sport since in the late 50s, actually. We started with short tracks, and I came to Indianapolis initially in 1963, and they haven't thrown me out yet. I'm still here.
That's a good thing.
I love it. I love racing. I'm still doing it because I enjoy it. I get to talk to people like yourself that are up and coming relatively compared to who you replaced with your 50 years. You still got 40-some years to go to catch them. So. But I enjoy what you're doing. I enjoy reading what you put out. I think it's very good, excellent, and I appreciate you taking the time on a Friday, April Fool Day. This didn't happen to be an April Fool. We're here, and so I appreciate it. And who knows, down the road, I do know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
We may do this again, and we can go over the series and tell me about the highlights, what you saw.
Sounds like a plan. Thank
My
you,
guest is the media director for the United States Auto Club, and somebody that if you haven't signed up to get, can you sign up to get your stuff online?
You can just email me or through the USAC website. Just add me to the news, and you'll get it right in your email inbox.
Is it available on USAC website?
Everything that I do goes on the website too.
And the website address is?
USACracing.com.
Very clever.
Yeah.
I hope did they hire somebody to come up with that?
USAC.com was taken by USA Cycling, so we had
really?
to go USACRacing.com.
Well, that works. Anyway, my guest has been Richie Murray. If you haven't read him, read him. USACRacing.com. Check it out and find out what's going on with the world of short track open wheel racing. You'll love it. It's great racing. If you haven't been to a race, you need to go. And if you're in the Indianapolis area, there's a bunch of them right here, including the BC 39 that's just been announced is coming back. So we have more guests upcoming, and we'll be coming to you shortly, but I appreciate you watching today. This is Don Kay saying thanks for being here. We'll see you again.